I'm super excited for this next panel. I mean, largely because I'm in it. That sounded very vain. Hi, Cathy. We get to go one-on-one with the aforementioned Cathy Engelbert, the WNBA's first and only commissioner. We're going to talk a little bit about the rapid growth of the league. But is it really all that rapid? Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for Cathy. Okay, so Cathy, this is going to be a not-so-humble brag. I had the opportunity to sit with your colleague yesterday, Adam Silver, and I'm warning you right now, I told him ahead of time that when I interview people for keynotes, I tend to take notes so that I can, as I just did, remind myself and the audience of everything that you said. He said it was cool, and then right away he was like, look at me! He's like, this is awkward, I need you to look at me. So I'm warning you, I'm going to do that, okay? Welcome.
Great to be here.
I mean, you've had almost
my voice is a little strange.
I was going to say, well, you've had almost nothing going on.
Yeah, my heart's still beating from last Wednesday's game in Minneapolis when Sabrina hit that three, and then Friday night was crazy, and then Sunday.
I know you can't, like, choose, and I feel like maybe I'm being, like, a prisoner of the moment. I'm not going to ask you specifically about teams. Maybe I'm being a prisoner of the moment. Was this, like, the greatest series, WNBA Finals series maybe we'd ever seen?
I think the quality of the play and where it's come and how far it's come, I mean, again, it has to be, if not one of the best series that we've ever had.
3 games where teams had to overcome 15-plus point deficits, 2 overtime games, and we would never see.
And then Friday night, you had 20-some lead changes or ties, so it was incredible.
It was absolutely incredible, and it really did reflect what was an incredible season, and I think that's what's been so great, is that the platform is there, the visibility is there, and then the women are delivering on the court. But I want to start there with a little reflection. Do you think that there is a moment or a series of moments that come to mind that help define the impact and growth that we saw this year in the W?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think it happened just this year, and it did not. One, this is the longest tenured women's professional sports league in the U.S. at 28 years. I came in a few years ago. We had no financial capital. We had no human capital. We were just surviving. And we hit the pandemic, and then we hit George Floyd and Jacob Blake, and then we were thrown in the middle of a political battle in Georgia, and then a year and a half later, Brittany Griner gets wrongfully detained in Russia, and then, just so much has happened, and so much these players have been through, and so I think this year really was the confluence of a lot of positive elements for the W to come together, the players to come together, the league, the owners, and put on the best basketball in the world, and certainly the players showed up. I mean, Asia Wilson, a monster season, Nafisa Collier, a monster season, and I would say when I came in, I had a long career, not in sports, 33 years at a firm called Deloitte, and I came in not knowing anything about running a sports league, but the one thing I knew as a fan, and I'm one of 8 kids with 5 brothers, and my dad was actually drafted into the NBA in 1957 by the Detroit Pistons. And I played for Naismith Hall of Fame coach Muffet McGraw, who went on to great success at Notre Dame. I played for her at Little Lehigh University. And as I reflect on everything, we've been through in this confluence and the state of the game and how far we've come, and just that the players trusted us to go into the bubble. And then we were able to return to the players this year through charter travel and other things, and just now, obviously, you're going to ask me, I'm sure, about the CBA, and just like so much has happened, and we've been through so much with the players, and I think the fact they showed up the way they did on the court and off the court, and they're always showing up great off the court, and I heard the prior panel talking about the fits and fashion, and I mean, think about the W sitting at this intersection of sport, culture, fashion, even music. And I know a lot of the NBA players talk about, music as well being a guiding light for them, and just everything that happened. So there's not one thing we point to. Raising financial capital in February of 22 was a huge moment for us at the league to be able to deploy and be ready for the moments this year, whether it was a digital transformation, whether it was hiring human capital. You can have all the financial capital in the world, but if you don't have people to deploy it and to grow revenue, you're not going to be anywhere. And so, all of those things came together this year.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that this is not this is not a moment. This has been a movement that has been long-standing. I actually asked Adam just yesterday about the growth of the W, and I said that I think on the surface, the people that I talk to on television, they would say, oh, it's Caitlin Clark, it's Angel Reese. Like, that's why you've seen all this rapid growth. But when I asked Adam that question, because he's privy to the business that you all have been doing over the years to help get to this moment, he said he thinks that you have done a remarkable job at building a brand, not just building a business, but building a brand and the marketing of that brand. Can you share any specific strategies with what you've done to put the W in that space?
Yeah, I'll say first, coming in, again, knowing nothing about sports leagues, I looked at the small team I had, I think it was 12 at the time, and said, what's our strategy? And they looked at me like I had 5 heads. And so what we did is put a very simple strategy. We're going to be player first, stakeholder success, and fan engagement. That's it. I do a lot of things in threes in my life. Those are 3 things. But to your point, Elle, that sits on the foundation of 4 things. One is the game, and in my view, don't need to tweak the game. The game's never been better. The second is the brand. Think orange hoodie, logo woman, the brand very strong. The organization needed total transformation. I mean, we were a mess, team and league. And then the ecosystem, which is a lot of the people in this room and the media companies, the corporate partners, the whole ecosystem, which we don't necessarily control, but we can drive the narrative around why they should be endorsing a player, why they should put them in an ad spot, why they should sponsor a team or the league, and why the valuation of our assets, including our media rights, were way undervalued 5 years ago. So I'd say that's kind of like, it was just a simple strategy, but everything that we've done in 5 years has been guided by player first, stakeholder success, fan engagement. They have to fit into those 3 buckets or we won't do it. We won't deploy capital there. And quite frankly, it's work to be focused on those 3 things. And, sports is a lot about marketing. The other thing is, I thought this was going to be so different than my prior life where I led a firm of 100,000 people. It's not. Sports is big business about relationships. You have to build those relationships. You have to have the right narrative. You have to sell. You have to market. So I'm proud that, when I first joined the league, we had one marketing person who had a great PowerPoint slide. I joined about 2/3 of the way through the season. And she had a great PowerPoint slide. She was a marketing director, I think was her title. And I said, what are we doing for the rest of the season? We had 1/3 to go, playoffs. And she said, oh, here's the 5 things we're going to do. And I said, that looks great. Could you double click on each of those bullets and tell me actually what the executable plan was? And she looked at me for 30 seconds, which seemed like forever, right. Al, and said, I got nothing. I don't have any people. I don't have any money. I got nothing. I said, oh, now I understand. And now we have 25 people in marketing, and we've got engineers and digital people and social people and people who know how to market data. Like, who is our fan? Who was our fan and who is our fan? I mean, this year, if we look at the tens of millions of fans we've brought in and start to look at that data, younger. We need younger fans to flock to sports, and in the W, they're flocking in droves. Our young millennial and Gen Z females flocking to watch the W from a viewership perspective. And then obviously looking at our attendance in arena, very diverse fan base and increasingly diverse. So again, I mean, it's all of those factors coming together. But you do have to, I always said the facts will set you free. Now I'm like, data will set you free. Once you understand the data and you can draw insights from that as to who you're trying to. The other thing is, like, we're, at least based on our data, looking at the fans and how long they were viewing. We're like outpacing the industry on how long. People actually stayed. When they watched, they stayed longer than ever before for us and longer than the average male sport. So that's an important data point right now. What do we do with it for next year and thereafter?
Wow. Data that says that women pay longer attention than men do. Isn't that wild? That is so
I didn't
wild.
say that. Note that. That's
I said
not
it.
what
It's fine,
said.
Cathy. It was out of my mouth. Listen, I'm 5'3" and I have no discernible basketball skills, but you threw me a lob, so I'm going to take this opportunity. You did mention the CBA. That's obviously in the news this week, and we heard Terry refer to it earlier. What is the league's plan to address concerns for the players in terms of salary, benefits, and working conditions?
Well, first, when I walked into the league, 4 days in the job, someone said, "You're flying to Las Vegas to be in your first collective bargaining meeting." And I'm like, collective what? Because I didn't have a union workforce at Deloitte of 100,000 people, so it was a little bit of a different. But the one thing I knew is we're going to listen, we're going to build some trust. We did, at the time, a historic progressive CBA back in 2020, and it's time. And I think one of the things we did was negotiated the opt-out. It was an 8-year deal, opt-out after 6. Here we are. By the way, next season is covered under the current CBA, but it's 26 and after, which is the perfect moment for us all to reflect on the growth. You know, we were hoping we'd grow like we did. We didn't know, but we did put that opt-out in the hopes that we would grow. And Terry and I have talked to, and NECA, the president, NECA Agumake, the president of the Players Association, have talked all summer about what we knew would be coming, which is to capitalize and actually offer, an opportunity to sit down, listen, talk about what's next, work together with the ownership groups who are all investing heavily in their teams. You see new practice facilities and things like that. So, we're at a different place than we were 6 years ago, so I'm glad that we have the chance to get back and discuss, what's next for these players and the next generation, because the one thing I know is we're looking at the college ranks and we're looking at Paige Beckers and Juju Watkins and Kiki Iriafan and Kiki Rice and Hannah Hidalgo and all these amazing players that are going to come in. And then I'm told the U17 ranks, people are like, Cathy, wait till you see them play. So, the health of the game and the confidence. And so I'm really optimistic that we'll sit down, we'll listen, and we'll get to something fair for everyone.
I love that. That's a reminder for all of you women's basketball lovers that the W just ended, but we are getting ready for women's college basketball. Tune in. What does it look like? We talked a little bit about it. The last panel talked about it as well, where you used to have to be guided business-wise on asking, potential partners to lean on courage and, to have vision. And now that you have this data and the proof is in the pudding, what do your business negotiations look like right now? How are you leveraging the success of the league?
This is like the best question anyone's ever asked, because no one ever asked that question. And the one thing when I meet with corporate partners, I don't meet with them and say, sponsor the WNBA or a player. I say, what are you trying to accomplish in your business? And you know what their answer usually is? Trying to get more women consumers, because 80% of every household consumer purchasing decision in the U.S. is made or influenced by a woman. And I say, check, we got that. I can show you the data. We want people, if we're going to sponsor you, we want people then to buy from us. Well, there's data, independent data, that says when a fan sees in arena or on broadcast an ad for a product or service, a WNBA fan is 12 times more apt to buy from them than the average U.S. adult. So again, data will set you free. So you have to listen to what these companies are trying to accomplish. You do need to grow. I think we still have a lot of growth around corporates. I think a lot of corporations are looking at their spend, and if only 2% of their sponsorship spend is on women's sports, and they have a big DE&I initiative in the company. And I know from talking to some of our partners, like a Google, when they announced their partnership with us, they said, their leadership said they got thousands of emails from employees saying, thank you for supporting the diverse women in sport and of the WNBA. So that goes a long way too. There's a lot of intangibles when you do that. And I knew this because I was on the other side of the table being pitched the WNBA and the USGA and the USTA in my prior job. And we picked what we picked at the time because we thought our talent base, because we were B2B, not B2C, but we felt our talent base would be proud if we sponsored certain sports leagues and teams. So that continues to be something where once we get the narrative right, once we talk about what they're trying to accomplish in their business objectives. Our Scripps Ion deal, which has been amazing for us, our Friday night tune-in appointment viewing, and we did really well on Scripps this year in our second year. And, we're bringing them a much more diverse viewer. They're bringing us millions and millions of more viewers, obviously to add to the great partners at ESPN and Disney and our other broadcast partners. And that's kind of set us up, because this whole, if you build it, they will come. I know it's an adage from baseball, from Field of Dreams, right? But if you build it, they will come. We only had 80 of our games on national platforms when I first joined the league. Last year, we had over 200 of our 240 games on national platforms. It matters, being seen. And now there's almost an ad spot. We've also worked really hard with our corporate partners to say, don't you put a WNBA player in your ad spot? And there's almost not an ad spot you see in a major sporting event today that doesn't have a WNBA player in it. So I'm actually probably most proud of that, because when young girls, young boys, when young millennials can see these professional athletes who are elite and the best at the game, this gives them inspiration.
It really does. I do have to say, though, seeing some of those incredible matchups on Ion, it's breaking my heart. Oh, it's breaking my heart, Cathy. They were really good. I was like, I wish they were on with us.
You had a lot of great matchups.
We had a ton of great matchups, but I'm incredibly greedy. I want them all.
That's the beauty of the league right now. There's a lot of parity in the league, and there were a lot of great matchups on ESPN and ABC this year.
Truly. It was exactly what you wanted. The who determines going to the playoffs coming down to almost the last day of play. I want to get to a couple more questions before we have to let you go. One of those being, we just heard the last panel talk about how important fan feedback is. And the good news about fans is they have never been wrong. They are 100% right all of the time. I'm saying that with my tongue planted firmly in my cheek. How do you know? Like, what is something that should be actionable? Like, how do you know how to disseminate fan feedback? What's good, what's tangible, what's real?
Well, let me start with, obviously, with all the positives of this league this year, there are some negatives and growing pains, and our players have always been faced with vitriol, but this year it went to a level that was unacceptable. No place in sport for the racism, homophobia, misogyny that our players endure online. We're going to work very multidimensionally in the off season on whether it's a technology solution, which we're already in some conversations on, whether it's continued mental health, whether it's the physical security, whether it's monitoring, because there are things you can do. You can't stop someone from typing something where they have no accountability, but it's just no place for it in sport. And women athletes get it much more than men, in my assessment. But then there's the positive part of all the fan engagement, and fans are really passionate and avid and rabid. And this year particularly, I mean, my email box, they figured out my email, unfortunately for me.
Oh, no.
And thousands a week of suggestions. Some are really positive, but no winning team do I ever get an email from a winning team fan. It's always from a losing team fan all year, by the way. But but it means there's no more apathy for this game, and it's a sign. But again, we have to get this microcosm of broader society out of our sport, and then work with fans. And some fans, over the years, fans will always give me suggestions on expansion cities. They'll give me lots of suggestions on officiating. They'll give me suggestions.
Especially lately.
Yeah, suggestions on everything. So, hopefully, I mean, I was talking with some NBA players about how they handle all the vitriol that they get as well, and they say we just ignore it. And it's hard for women. Like, I think we're more like, we read everything, we take it hard. And I think if other people couldn't see the vitriol, it would be a little easier even if we saw it, because I know myself, I spend most social functions defending me and the players because people read stuff and they think it's true, and it's not true. So much of it is not true. So anyway, but again, we need to be focused on our strategy and execution, and continuing to elevate and market these players to where they need to be. And it's not easy being commissioner, by the way. I told Jessica that yesterday when I saw her at something. I said, look, we have hard jobs, but that's the consequence of leadership too, is you lead during the hard times and the great times.
Yeah. I'll close with this, and maybe this is a little bit geared towards what I do, but I think also for anyone out here who's a potential partner, and you obviously have partners that are out here, how do you think moving forward as we sort of look, ahead here in the W, how do you think we can evolve and do a better job of sort of accurately capturing the essence of what the WNBA is?
Yeah, I think it's about content. It's, I always said you need compelling content, you need household names, you need to be shown, you need to show up. The shoulder programming that ESPN did this year was amazing, meaning the lead-ins and the lead-outs to our games. I mean, it was absolutely incredible because it got to storytell. So I think it's the storytelling, it's the compelling content. Everyone always says to me, why don't you just do an F1 Drive to Survive for the WNBA? And of course, we have a lot of interest in doing things like that, but then you need it funded and produced and distributed, and distributors usually pay. And in men's sports, they always step up and prepay, and then you can get it directed and produced. And it's harder in women's sports because we haven't been valued that high. So we continue to fight the battle around that kind of stuff because that content plays really well with, especially with the younger generation. I mean, I was watching the Elite Eight this year when Iowa played LSU in that rematch from the prior year national championship. And I was so struck by my 22-year-old son who was in the other room, by the way, studying for the CPA exam, thankfully. And I was watching it live because I still haven't cut the cord, and he's in the other room on his computer. He comes in, Mom, did you just see what Angel Reese did? And I said, yeah, I just saw it live. He's watching a 7-second clip, and I'm watching a live game for 2 hours. He's not going to sit down and watch this next generation. So we also have to be ready for what that fan of the future is looking for. And then in our case, we also need to kind of expand globally around our fan base, because that's one thing I've admired about how the NBA has expanded globally and how they brought players to Europe and Asia, and now the Basketball Africa League. And we need to kind of have our own global platform and our own global footprint, because there's a lot of low-hanging fans there that I know want to follow the W, but it might not be covered in their country. So again, it's again a multifaceted strategy to try to, make sure that we continue to elevate the game and elevate the focus, and if you build it, they will come.
In summation, this did not happen overnight, friends. This was a real strategy. Player first, stakeholders, success, and then fan engagement being the core principles. She had to deal with the CBA 4 days in, so she knows what she's about to do.
Listen, right? Listen.
Lots of listening, anticipating. And when she says that she wants to do, once she says that she wants her business success, she says that she's going to lead with investment opportunities in the W. Compelling content, that's how we can do a better job and service these women's better. Lead-ins, storytelling. We have to be ready for the fan of the future, and global expansion is the way. Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause for Cathy Engelbert. Thank you so much, Cathy.